ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Auto Club Speedway as it plays host to the second race of Season 6 for the Dark Horse Racing Series, presented by Troy Lee Designs. This evening, these drivers will take to the 5, maybe 6 groove, 2-mile speedway slash super speedway. We're going to have action at over 210 miles per hour. And we ended up having a very interesting season opener last week at Pocono. Seth Colby joined up here in the booth by Matthew Rodriguez. And Matt, I mean, last week, we had very interesting finish. Exciting for the fans, maybe not as exciting for the drivers involved. Some hurt feelings coming into tonight. I look at our grid and I look at that faster pair column. That might be in use here this evening. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, that fast repair kind of gives you that one free reset. So if you're thinking about trying a move that you're not that quite confident about, it lets you try that move. And if something doesn't work out, and you can take a fast repair and just get another chance.
We were talking just before we came on the air. This particular racetrack was the season opener for 3 of the previous seasons. Also played as a double points race last year. Season 4 was the only season, I believe, where it was not the season opener. It was positioned 9th race on the season, but it has definitely played its part into the outcome of a champion as well. Looking back at it, 2 of the seasons that a driver took a checkered flag here, they went on to win the championship trophy.
Yeah, Nick the Groot obviously being the champion in that one last season.
And Maleska in season 4 was the other one. Yeah, it was season 4. And here tonight we've got, last count, 18 drivers that are getting ready to take the green flag. And you were naming off some faces that we're probably going to see up here at the front, some favorites to look at. But I'm gonna use the pun again. I feel like it's catch-22 with them being named the Dark Horse Racing Series when we use the acronym Dark Horse, because it feels like we're basically just sucking up. But there are a lot of, I think, under the radar drivers that could maybe be able to find victory lane here tonight. A couple of them maybe for the first time in their Dark Horse career.
Yeah, realistically, if you want your best quote unquote shot here, guy who has had previous success here, won races, finished top 3 in multiple of these races, has to be Matt Wagner. He is your go-to guy. With Nick the Groot not being in the field, with him being runner-up last season, I could see him being one of those guys. Another guy who probably doesn't get talked about as much, Luis Gonzalez Nunez. I think he could be one who kind of sneaks through his field, maybe steals a win.
Been close several times last season, as you saw your 4D Raceware starting grid, and it's time to turn them loose here tonight at the Auto Club Speedway. This is going to be the longest race of the season for these drivers, and it's going to be 100 and... Oh, actually, I was looking
115
at the wrong...
laps.
Yeah, 115, yeah. 230 miles for
and
these
look, there
guys.
are 3x3 behind.
One driver bailing out there onto the apron. Oh boy. Is that David Cook, I think, that was going up the middle?
I believe it is, and I believe he's just being a little bit brave. Looks like Peterson. Peterson's jumping out. Oh, yeah, Peterson's coming down the pit road.
He is.
I wonder if he may have jumped the start.
Peterson coming down at...
yes, I think he jumped the start.
Oh. That is tough, because mention the fact, I mean, these guys are already flying around this track. Now it's over 220 miles per hour down the back straightaway, creeping down pit road at 60 miles per hour. Eric Peterson's going to lose a lap for certain. He'll have to rely on a caution to get him the free pass, get him back in the lead lap, provided nobody else falls off the lead lap.
Well, you see, I'm just kind of jockeying for position up here. Let's go ahead and refresh your memory back to the not-so-distant land of past week. Coming down to the finish, Rick Ray Vaughn, Matt Wagner, and Craig Forsyth. Obviously, three different drivers, 3 different perspectives. Looks like Luis Gonzalez Nunez may have caught the wall just a little bit out of 2.
Yeah, I saw that as well on the top of your screen. Either he got the wall or he bailed out of the throttle enough to avoid it, but certainly lost momentum. He was battling at the time. I believe it was for around the 3rd position, and it's just dropped him back outside of the top 5.
Yeah, it looks like he caught the wall just a little bit, but there actually is no damage on the car, not even a scrape. So definitely a kind of a sigh of relief not having to use that fast repair, but one of those things where you got to be worrying about aero push here. Obviously getting at least a little bit of leading air into your wing that's going to shove you up into the wall. With a lot of aero push, I'd be worried about that.
And here we have on board with Alec Coates, who had that great run last week in the season opener, bringing it home in the second position. Right now running in 7th place. Obviously, the IndyCar point standings completely different from, NASCAR Cup, NASCAR Xfinity, NASCAR Trucks, etc. There's a bigger points difference between finishing positions. So with Rick Rabon's victory last week, he's got 14 points over Alex Coates, 18 points back to Eric Schaus, who's not in the field here tonight. There's a couple of notable drivers that are not in the field here this evening that were up there in the point standings. Schaus being one of them, Gary Corley another, Don Day. These drivers all came in top 10 in points after last week's season opener.
Yeah, Don Day, he was just a little bit too tired, didn't have any practice at the track, didn't really want to push himself, and kind of may cause an incident, decided to go ahead and take the week off, and more props to you. But I'm kind of worried about Eric Peterson here. He is right in front of the leaders, almost 2 down.
Yeah, that's definitely not a good thing for Eric Peterson, because it's easy enough to be able to get 1 lap back with a free pass, but you go 2 laps down, that means you're relying on 2 cautions, and, a lot of drivers seem to feel that here this evening we may be in for a race of long green flag runs, maybe the possibility of not even seeing a caution this evening.
Yeah, because realistically, looking at the fuel mileage here, it's around 24 to 29 laps. That's great, but 29 laps would be optimal because you can do a 3-stop if we go green, if you get 29 laps per stop.
On board with Charles Teed. Right now he's the 4th car in line. You can see the gap up there to the top trio. Right now that is about roughly a second. Thaddeus McMurray is dealing with some connection problems right now in that 37. He just dropped from 8th back to the 10th position. McMurray with that great run up inside the top 10 last week.
Kind of just looking through the field here. Looking at a lot of drivers, look at Alex Coates. He's been one who's been trying that kind of draft line. Seemingly we can kind of get the same advantages that we were having last week, where drivers would really on purpose miss turn 2 to get a better run down to the 3 and on the front straightaway. I think he's found something here because he's slowly just clawing his way up the pack, and he's actually gaining.
Whoa, is that Matt Wagner? Yes, I don't know if he got loose off of 2, but he went way down almost to the white line there on the back straightaway. He's going to lose some ground to 2nd place David Cook. You see Rick Rabon has gotten around Eric Peterson, put him a 2nd lap down. So Peterson going to try and do all he can to get back around Rabon, keep himself at -1. You brought up the fact about the fuel window, 24 to 29 laps, and we were told you could stretch it that 29 laps if you're up and in a pack. If you're all separated, it's going to be a much lower fuel number, and so these guys are kind of looking potentially at a 3-stop, but there's no guarantee that that's actually going to work.
Yeah, that's my huge thing, where all of this is hypotheticals, and sometimes the best rewards are on hypotheticals, where no one's confident in the strategy, and maybe you can get something out of left field, but again, this is a lot of things have to play in the right circumstances. You kind of have to have the right plan and right pieces fall into place, because if not, your entire strategy gets ruined, and you may be looking at the other end of a strategy where you're not that competitive.
So McAdory, Jeff Heisong in a good battle. We'll call that Pack 3, as the field is kind of split up into 3 groups. That was going on for P8, and up here you got Luis Gonzalez Nunez, Craig Forsyth, who are both battling for the 6th position. Obviously, Forsyth, looking for a comeback run here tonight, was in the conversation for the race win. He was the middle car in the 3-wide move into turn 1 on the final lap of the race, and he ended up bringing it home on the hook, subsequently 16th in the points coming into this one. We kind of talked about this last week too as well. If you're in a situation strategic-wise or position-wise to start out the season with a win, then obviously go for it, because there's no points that you have to build off of at that point in time. But now, points are on the board, standings are currently being calculated. Now it's kind of time to put your head down, go to work, and maybe not be quite as aggressive as you were last week.
I mean, Seth, you know what they say? I mean, nothing cures a bad weekend like a win.
Absolutely.
Where I think that's kind of what Matt Wagner's thinking here, where he knows he's already at a big deficit. Nothing's going to make him feel better other than getting a win, and right now I think that's really what's trying to drive him here, where he knows he's good at this track. He knows he can win it, and he knows that, hey, he's really only got a few people to beat. or at least he thinks he only has a few people to beat. So he is going to be trying for this win, and that may or may not come back to bite.
We're riding on board here with Craig Forsyth, one of our new features here this season that I was really looking forward to observing here tonight specifically, as well as the sister track of Michigan later on this season, is this telemetry we've got in the bottom right of your screen, which shows you not only the speed these drivers are carrying, but also shows you what gear they're currently in. I remember last season when we would watch the panels on the steering wheels of these drivers when we would ride on board. Some of the drivers, they would go with 6th gear, some of them would go with 5th. You may have noticed when we jumped on board with Craig Forsyth for a brief moment, he was running in 5th gear, and once he got in the draft of the cars ahead of him, he then shifted up to 6th gear. So these drivers, they're actually manipulating the draft based off of the gears they run here.
You know, part of me would be kind of hesitant to use 5th because, yes, 5th is not really a drafting gear. It's more or less a get up to speed passing gear, quote unquote. But yes, you're turning the engine at a lot higher RPMs. You're kind of getting worse fuel mileage. You get a little bit extra power out of it, kind of. That I'm not very confident. I'd personally leave it in 6 and try to save as much fuel as possible. That's if I'm trying for my 3-strop strategy. Some of these guys may have already written it off as not viable, and they already know they're going to have to make 4 stops. So they're trying just to, hey, we're going to go as fast as possible. We're going to get through this.
Well, Rick Ravon, David Cook, Matt Wagner, the top 3, they have now shaken Eric Peterson. He's now dropping back from this trio. So his chances of trying to get up there and get one of his 2 laps back looking pretty slim to none. And the fact that these guys have been able to gap themselves as quickly as they have, I mean, we're now looking at nearly 3 seconds from 3rd place Matt Wagner back to 4th place Luis Gonzalez Nunez. I mean, right now it's looking like a 3-horse fight. So let's talk about the possibility in the next maybe 10 to 12 laps of pit road. I was watching these guys in practice, and it looks like, at least from up here in the booth, this is a relatively easy pit road to get onto.
It looks easy to get onto, but looks can be very deceiving. So a lot of pit road is a bit of concrete, and concrete, known for its great durability, not known for its great grip properties. So I'd be heavily expecting a lot of guys to be kind of speeding on pit road, maybe slide through their pit boxes. And again, just seconds can easily change the tide of this race.
I remember too, we ended up talking with drivers prior to this race in previous seasons, and they would say that, you know, the handling of the car would start to go away near the end of the run. The big reason for that is as the fuel load lightens, the back of the end of the car starts to get lighter and wants to step out coming off of 2 and off of 4. So with that being said, more than likely these guys are going to stretch it as far as the fuel tank can possibly allow them. That back end's going to want to step out from that banking to apron transition coming to pit lane, something they're probably going to have to deal with as well.
Let me throw you another curveball where, I mean, we were talking to some drivers pre-race, and we really asked them, hey, how much of the factor tire wear is going to be tonight? And really, kind of the jury was out on it. It was kind of a, I mean, yeah, tire wear, I mean, you get aero push and whatnot, that would probably be a factor, but they didn't seem that keen on tire wear. So would you potentially roll the dice, probably not take tires, maybe save a couple seconds off your pit stop and run with a double set of tires?
Especially if we get a late race caution. That could be a very interesting scenario as we watch the battle for 5th place. Alec Coates, last week runner-up, looking back at Craig Forsyth. They've lost touch with Luis Gonzalez Nunez, who now may be barely catching the slipstream off the lap machine of Eric Peterson. You see him snaking down the back straightaway there with Charles Teed and Jeff Hysong. That's for P7. Joe McAdory and Dylan Moskowitz trying to enter into that vicinity as well.
Now, realistically, if you're watching these top 2, you may be wondering, hey, why are they just kind of passing each other back and forth? I mean, that is a strategy, and really the 6 and the 1 have played this teamwork strategy to a T. This is exactly what they need to be doing. Hey, we're leapfrogging off of one another. They're not slowing down at all. We're not trying to let each other in. They're using the runs, taking the runs, allowing themselves to keep going as fast as possible and just tow the other along where, hey, in another lap, you'll see David Cook. He'll end up slingshotting by. You'll probably see it here at the end of the front straightaway. And Ravon will start falling back and kind of drafting off of Cook. you'll see it happen lap after lap, and you see Matt Wagner, he was just hanging here because right now this is all he can do to really keep up. Yes, he can push the envelope and try and pass both of them, but then he kind of puts himself at risk because, hey, he's going to lose a lot of speed. He may get separated by the teammates. Again, it's kind of your best to just kind of wait and see approach.
Well, not only that, but with these guys swapping the lead back and forth like they are, can the three generate any momentum to be able to make a move?
I think he could if he wanted to, but I don't think I feel like he knows it is not attack mode yet. And I think he may be trying to play a little bit of fuel strategy here.
We saw this kind of do-si-do at Pocono, and we've seen it in the past at the speedways as well. It doesn't look like it, but you could kind of liken it to locking bumpers in a two-car tandem at a Daytona or a Talladega in stock cars. It's basically allowing these drivers to keep forward momentum, and that's why they've been able to open up as big a lead as they have. Back to fourth place Gonzalez Nunez, fifth place Alex Coates and company. You know, these guys up here swapping the lead back and forth. You got to drop back outside of the top five where the real good battling is going on for position. Charles T, Jeff Heisong, they continue side by side. Joe McAdory and Dylan Moskowitz in this group as well, trying to get those final spots up inside of the top 10 here. And they're starting to possibly be reeled in by Joseph Morales and company.
Rick Ravon, oh, looks like he was trying to get the pit road, missed it a little bit. That's going to hurt his entry, but end up coming up the track just a little bit. Looks like Luis Nunez is actually coming in.
And these guys coming in here at the completion of lap 25, so right within that window, they are not going to be able to make it to that target lap of lap 29, which I think a big reason. Oh, we got a caution.
I think it's Joseph Morales. He ended up spinning almost around the 1 and 2.
Gets the thing refired.
I think he had a little bit of help.
Ravon and Nunez were definitely on pit road before the caution came out, so I would assume they could take service if they so chose and would not get penalized. I've also noticed that CJ Holloman was also on pit road, but I don't know. Yeah, I think it's like he's taking service as well. I don't know if he was past the commitment line when the yellow flag came out. Let's go back, take a look at what exactly happened here to Joseph Morales in the 60.
This is a very odd wreck. I think I may want some of your insight on this because I'm just pieces are not clicking for me.
I believe that's is that Dylan McIntosh, 04 behind him.
Joseph Morales and Thaddeus McMurray.
McMurray, yeah, well,
I say it almost looks like he was dropping speed rapidly, but
yeah,
he pulled back up into the lane.
Yeah, if it was over in 3 and 4, I would think that he was possibly trying to slow to come to pit road, although it seems a little bit of a high entry into the corner if you were going to do that. I'm not exactly certain what happened there. Let's actually, why don't we take the onboard with him and see about the gearing, see what gear he was in, and see if maybe he accidentally downshifted or something. So the 60 car is in 3rd gear at that point in time, according to our telemetry.
I think that telemetry is actually the live telemetry and not the replay telemetry.
Ah, okay, that would make sense.
Pulling 220 at 3rd gear would be incredible.
That's an amazing setup.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so we won't rely on that. Let's go actually on board with McMurray and see about the speed differential between those two going into turn 1.
That's it. I'm looking at it, and it's like he just slowed down.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if you saw with the onboard there on the 37, but it was the brake light came on. Like that red light on the back end of the race car started flashing.
I wonder if he hit his pit limiter actually.
Maybe.
That light usually represents a pit limiter sign, so I wonder if he accidentally hit his pit limiter and it immediately went to drop speed and cut power. So how these pit limiters work is when you hit the button, it doesn't automatically just break the car down to pit road speed of 55. What it does is it'll automatically cut engine power, so it will start decreasing speed, but even if you put your foot fully on the gas, it will not register it. So I'm wondering if he accidentally hit that button in preparation to go down the pit road, and unfortunately may have just locked his car in pit road speed, and he didn't realize it in time, so he pulled up the track trying to get out of the way, and unfortunately that's where McMurray was.
I think that might be exactly what happened there. More than likely, he was planning to come down to pit lane that lap. Now, not much contact in terms of damage sustained by either driver, either Morales or McMurray. As a matter of fact, Thaddeus McMurray came down pit road moments ago with the rest of the leaders and did not have an extended stay on pit lane, just a simple a little over 7.5 second pit stop and down and away. Joseph Morales has also come down pit road and has not taken on a faster pair. So, a kind of a harmless incident here, bringing out the first caution of the evening.
Yeah, I don't know if McMurray would see that as harmless, but obviously there's some guys who were kind of kicking themselves. Rick Ravon, definitely one of the big winners out of that, where he got effectively a free pit stop.
I believe at the time of caution, Eric Peterson was the only car 1 lap down, so this will give him the free pass and he will get one of his 2 laps back. I'm also seeing CJ Holloman currently scored a lap down. I wondering if this could have possibly been a penalty that he had to serve with maybe coming down a closed pit lane. Like again, like I said, I don't know it with the exact timing of the yellow flag if he had made it to the commitment line or not. I do know that he took service when he was on pit road, so I'm wondering if maybe the 1 lap penalty could be a result of that.
That will be one that we may have to see about post race because I'm not quite certain.
We're getting ready to go back green. Pace car peels off. Rick Ravon, Matt Wagner, David Cook, your top
Woo.
3. And
Look
now
at David Cook. He just kind of got his nose in there with Matt Wagner, kind of bunched both of them up and let Ravon just kind of drive away.
Ravon going to open up about a 3-4 car length advantage over the battle for second. Matt Wagner stuck on the top side there, not going to be able to complete the pass on David Cook, and this brought Forsyth, Coates, Heisong, Teed all back into the conversation. We'll see if this group of 3 can pull away again or not.
Well, we know Matt Wagner's feelings on the incident last week. We did not hear Forsyth's perspective on a lot of this.
And we're about to now have all 3 of them up there, throw a blanket over them. I mean, it's too early on in the race, I think, for anything to culminate from last week. But then again, you look at the fact that we do have a faster pair these drivers could use. So, who knows?
I mean, you can't use a faster pair when you set into the stratosphere, so just remember that.
That is true. On board with Forsyth, see him running way down there on that white line, trying to up the bottom. We mentioned the fact that only one driver in the field here tonight is a previous winner at Auto Club, that being Matt Wagner in the 3 car, who is going to mix it up now with David Cook for the top position. They both got around Rick Ravon about half a lap ago.
Yeah, I'm kind of seeing, you notice right there that I think the big Achilles heel in both David Cook and Rick Ravon's strategy is getting separated. So when they're separated, they both kind of flounder a little bit. But now that they found each other, they're both kind of aiding each other, kind of using that draft off one another, where they can kind of use and abuse Matt Wagner here, where they can kind of take advantage of him not having any help.
David Cook, Rick Ravon teammates. We saw David Cook make his debut back in the season that Rick Ravon won the championship. Those 2 working together here again tonight. Wagner has seemed like now, after he got the race lead, he wants to run about that second groove, maybe straddled the seam there between grooves 2 and 3. He hasn't really gone down to the bottom since getting out to the lead, and that opened up the door for David Cook to take a look down low. A little surprising there that he's instead deciding to kind of run a couple grooves off the inside line. Maybe he helps with the entry off of turns 2 and 4 to get that straightaway speed or something.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out exactly what Matt Wagner's strategy is, because I don't think he's trying to save fuel, and it doesn't seem like he's exactly trying to break up the 2 teammates, so I'm kind of scratching my head, and I don't really know what his plan is.
A driver that caution did not help was Luis Gonzalez Nunez. We saw him come down pit lane at the time the caution flew, and then he came back down pit road after the caution came out with all the rest of the leaders. So he restarted back around the 13th position. He's picked up a few of those spots, now up to 10th place, but back in a lot more traffic currently than he was prior to when he came down to make what was then a green flag pit stop.
Yeah, that's the thing. Now he's stuck back in that second pack just because really the restarts, if you're not P5, P6, P7, kind of above that position, you kind of get stuck back in the kind of the checkup and everyone not getting going, and that definitely hurts your restarts a bit if you're not on it. And at a certain point, that kind of takes you out of the competition here unless you try to really turn up the heat where you're really setting down these fast laps. But at a track that's so aero dependent and draft dependent as Auto Club, I'd be hard pressed to see that.
A little bit of a moment there for Alec Coates off of turn 2. Almost got up into the wall there off and onto the back straightaway. I don't know if that was in reaction to Charles Teed up ahead of him or not, but a bit of a wiggle there on the back straightaway. I mean, for the most part, these cars seem to be pretty firmly planted to the racing surface, so we haven't seen a lot of slipping and sliding going on with these drivers. And obviously a big part of that is these Indy cars with the low downforce package, very close to the racing surface. And not only that, it's nighttime conditions, so the cooler conditions mean more grip.
And now you've got Craig Forsyth here in the picture. He's trying to make a battle for second here. You see Matt Wagner kind of hanging back, doing the same thing he did on that first run, just kind of keeping it at an arm's distance, but not exactly attacking.
Well, again, you know, we ended up talking with Matt Wagner last week, and he confirmed the fact this is one of his favorite tracks to run at. He's a former winner here, so he knows all the tricks of the trades on what he's got to do to be able to pick up a checkered flag or at least have a decent finish. So no surprise to see that, you know, he's just kind of marching to his own drum.
And I'll say the same thing as I really did last week. I mean, if you're not up in this main pack, I'd say really that kind of Charles Teed, Matt Wagner, he really dropped. But if you're not really kind of up near Coates High Song at this point, I'd be kind of looking towards alternative strategy where, listen, right now I'm not going to catch these guys on speed. I don't think I have the time or the speed to beat them normally. So how about I start looking towards strategy? How can I really kind of mix this up where I can make strategy work in my favor? So maybe undercut a little bit, hope for the best, or see maybe if I can run a few extra laps in them where they're not expecting it. Just try and beat them strategy-wise rather than speed-wise to get yourself back into the game.
David Cook and Rick Raybon doing that back and forth again. They're trying to see if they can break away from the field once more. Craig Forsyth still in touch with them, but it looks like fourth place on back might be losing some ground. Teed and Wagner mixing it up for that spot. Now they're going to get themselves single filed out, try and reel the top three back in. They got Alex Coates there and Jeff Heisong, who were just on board with moments ago. So your top 7 currently running about a second and a half separation, but Teed has got to try and reel those guys back in, because otherwise we'll have the same scenario we had back in the first green flag run, where it'll just be 3 cars up at the front battling for the lead.
And here's where, if you're Charles Teed, you're bouncing up and down, you're talking halfway in voice chat, trying to say, hey, Craig, can you drop back just a little bit? Give me a little bit of draft. Let me up there, please. And as Craig Forsyth here, you have all the power where, I mean, if you want to make this a 3-car battle, you can make this a 3-car battle. You want to make this a 5-car battle, yeah, go ahead and drop back. Let's go ahead and see if we can get them all up here.
I mentioned the fact that last season, Auto Club was one of the double points races, along with its sister track Michigan and the season finale at Indianapolis. This season, though, looking at the schedule, we've only got 2 double points races. Michigan and Indianapolis will be at Michigan September 18th, and then, of course, Indianapolis, the season finale. So, you know, eliminating that one double points race, you got to wonder how that's going to play into the outcome of the championship battle by the time we get to Indy.
I mean, realistically, just keeping it in mind that being consistent is better than trying to really ham up the points races or double points races and try and take advantage of those. Where, hey, these races here, where if you get on a really bad stretch and you're not getting good finishes, it'll really hurt you. But also, if you're someone like David Cook or Craig Forsyth, who finished second or third, and Rick Raybon puts away maybe 3 race wins, hey, you got a win at Michigan and Indy. I mean, that puts you right back in the conversation where effectively your 1 race win equates to 2 race wins. So you're right back in it.
And of course, next week, these drivers will be heading to the Kentucky Speedway. And based off of past results, we're going to be having the same scenario there that we had coming into tonight, where there will be only one driver that will take the green flag for that race that is a previous winner, and that would end up being Craig Forsyth. The other two previous winners, former champions, Nick DeGroot and Robert Maleska III.
Mr. Groot.
Well, we heard last week a lot of the drivers missed DeGroot, the level of competition that he would bring to the table.
I mean, DeGroot was one of those guys that kind of came in, week out. And yeah, he could either have this whole thing of, I mean, he would either run well the entire race, or hey, he would start bad, but he would slowly gain steam and just somehow be up near the front near the end of the race.
Now, I was watching this battle back here for 8th position between Luis Gonzalez Nunez and Dylan Moskowitz. And we talked about this last week, the fact that there's no road courses on the schedule this season. It is all speedways. And remember when we ended up having the split between road courses and speedways in the previous schedules, Dylan Moskowitz, he would run the speedways and he would take the off week during the road course races. Now that it's a schedule that is completely speedway oriented, you have to wonder, does this mean that we're going to see Dylan Moskowitz as a potential title contender? Because when he would run those speedway races, he was certainly always up in the conversation, whether inside the top 10 or even up inside of the top 5. Now, obviously did not get the start he was looking for last week in the season opener at Pocono, but there's still a lot of season left to run.
I mean, again, Moskowitz was one of those guys who you always had to look out for, and you could see the progression of kind of skill level slowly increase with him, where, I mean, it used to be one of those, hey, seeing him in the top 10, top 5, to now you routinely see him in the top 5. So I'd be kind of worried. I think he could easily be one of, if, again, making another pun, be one of the dark horses of this season where you see him make that huge leap with no road courses.
You saw there, started this race from the 17th position, right now running in 8th since the start of this race, has picked up the most spots, 9 positions gained. The driver that has obviously lost the most positions, Eric Peterson, started from the outside of the front row. He is still 1 lap down in the 17th position. He is hoping and praying for another caution to come back out, and maybe more so now than a couple of laps ago, based on the fact that Dylan McIntosh has lost the entire pack. He is running right now about maybe 20 seconds ahead of the race leaders, and if he goes a lap down, that then knocks Eric Peterson out of the free pass position should we get a yellow.
And I'm noticing that Craig Forsyth dropped all the way back to 5th. A little bit of a surprise.
In a battle right now with Matt Wagner for that 4th position. Charles Teed right there as well in the 50. Also, point of note, CJ Holloman, who was already off the lead lap, just a few laps ago, he came down pit road and lost a couple more laps. He's now returned to the track 4 laps down. It is definitely a lot earlier than if you were going to make a scheduled green flag pit stop, so I would have to assume that maybe some damage repair there for the 58 car, not certain.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Even if the 58 is having issues, I mean, it's one of the things where I always say keep it on the track and kind of keep gaining experience. Don't just park it. Don't just park it and, give up for the night. Where here's the thing. Even if you're 4 laps down, hey, you may not come back on the lead lap of this race. You may not be able to drag it all the way back, but at least you can use the race at hand as experience to learn how to drive the car better, to experiment, try some things where you're not at risk of losing the race because you're just kind of hanging in here. It's a really expensive testing session.
Here's CJ Holloman. We just saw him there on the back straightaway. It looks like he may be heading back for pit road once again. So maybe something a little bit more untoward going on with that 58 car. Obviously, last week made his debut. Brought it home, I believe, in the 20th position here tonight. Not the start he was obviously looking for, but up at the front, it's now a 2-horse race as opposed to the 3-horse race we saw in the early stages of this race. David Cook and Rick Raybon, they have really figured out that back and forth, swapping the lead, being able to gap whoever is running behind them.
And it's the thing of, they've just gotten used to it. And you can easily tell that, hey, this is something that they've done before and they've done in multiple leagues. just off of, again, how easy it is for them. Now, looking behind, I've seen Matt Wagner and Charles T try the same thing with varying success.
And we are probably, well, I was going to say, probably going to see Rick Ravon on pit road soon. Well, how about now? Dylan Moskowitz on pit road as well. Rick Ravon, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that when the last caution, or only caution, came out, Ravon led the field down pit road on the first lap of caution, and then the second lap of caution, everybody else came back down and topped off the fuel tank. He did not, so he was about a lap and a half short on fuel than everybody else in the field for this stint.
I think Eric Peterson's coming down the pit road this time. It's been 26 laps in this stint, so I think he may be trying something.
And David Cook is in, Matt Wagner, Luis Gonzalez Nunez.
Charles Teed's coming in this time.
I think he missed in this lap.
I think Teed missed pit road last lap.
He's with this group of 4. See if he's going to come down this time. And yes, he is. Looks like Jeff Heisung's going to come down here with him. Alec Coates, Craig Forsyth going to stay out an extra lap here. This will be their 28th lap on this tank of fuel. Brandon Carl in the 30 has also stayed out. And they will be the last 3 when they hit pit road to complete our first cycle of green flag pit stops here tonight. Remember, when we were beginning the cycle earlier on, we ended up having the Joseph Morales spin, so that ended up completely eliminating green flag pit stops as Coates is in. Forsyth stays out an extra lap, Matt. He's going to hit that target lap of 29.
I think Forsyth might have something here planned. I didn't know if he could actually make it that long, but again, I think he's trying to do that kind of fuel strat where he can still put himself on a better fuel pit or a better fuel calculator than everyone else.
Well, if he hits 29 here, it would be coming to the completion of lap 58, which would give us 58 laps to go.
Okay,
and that would be right in half of 29 laps apiece. But he's going to have to make sure when he merges back onto the racetrack that he merges with cars, because if he's all by his lonesome, strategy he's working on right now could be for naught.
Julian, kind of an underrated note. Looks like we had Elmer Joseph got caught on pit road for speeding 40-second hold. I believe it was a 45-second hold. Just now leaving.
So McAdory on pit road again. I believe he was already previously on pit lane, so looks like maybe serving a penalty there in the 312. That's going to lose him a lap, as David Cook should cycle out to the race lead. He's just now going to bypass Craig Forsyth, who is merging back onto the racetrack there in turn 1. So Cook to the lead, Ravon in second. Question is, where does Forsyth fall in line? Teed's going to pass him for third. Here comes Wagner for fourth. Yeah, he might drop back somewhere around the 8th, 9th position.
Oh, and it looks like, I just went back and looked at it. It looks like Joe McAdory may have got caught by the speeding police because it looks like he cut off his pit road limiter just a little bit too early.
He'll have to serve the 45-second penalty, which he is currently doing. This is going to drop him several laps down. He's at least 2 down at this point in time, and we saw on that onboard with CJ Holloman earlier, him coming down pit lane. Looks like he made the left-hand turn to the garage area. So tough break there and second start of his career in the Dark Horse Racing Series. Going to have a DNF 18th place here tonight at Auto Club as Rick Ravon reeled in David Cook. He goes back to the lead, and now these two go right back to work in that back and forth, continuing the forward momentum with the draft. They've got 2 seconds in hand back to third place running Charles Teed.
That's the thing where Teed's kind of on an island of his own. He doesn't really have anyone in front or behind him, so can't really take advantage of any draft here. I think he's going to fall all the way back to the clutches of Heisung, and he's going to be kind of stuck back in that train.
One driver that's going to take advantage of draft is Craig Forsyth. Mentioned the fact he had to merge with a group, had to have cars around him for the strategy that he's working on right now to actually come to fruition. And he's got Heisung, Wagner, Coates right ahead of him. So 27, for the moment, a caution would certainly change it up, but for the moment, I think he's just in ride mode trying to make it another 29 lap stint.
I think that would be easily doable for him because I'm looking here. Mm, 90. Because effectively, he makes another about 29 laps. He would have 25 laps to make it to the end of the race. Now, granted, off of that last pit stop, he did have a few caution laps to aid him. But effectively, he can cut it into stints of effectively like 27. Effectively, maybe another stop or two.
Talked about the tough luck there for Joe McAdory being tagged by the speeding police, but a new livery on that 312 that we'll see tonight and during the course of the season going forward. And just wanted to shed a little light on that paint scheme sponsored by D1 Life. This is an organization, a nonprofit organization that was formed in tribute to a young man by the name of Dylan Pegace. He was killed in a tragic car accident at the age of 17 in June of this year, and the family put together a nonprofit organization. I'm just going to read off the website here what this organization does with the donations. Foundation's motto to quotes live a D1 life reflects our desire to inspire others to raise their level of character, leadership, and love towards others while also leading others to Christ. The objective of the foundation is to provide scholarship opportunities to seniors preparing for college, and it will also send youth to church conferences, soccer camps, photography seminars, and more. So pretty cool to have the story behind the sponsor when it comes to races like this. Always kind of almost like having a behind the scenes, and sometimes you end up seeing sponsors out there and you wonder, how that sponsor got there. When you get to find out those stories behind the sponsor, it just kind of makes makes the livery stand out a little bit more.
I said it really adds meaning behind it. It's almost like watching an episode of how it's made and realizing how aerosol cheese is made, so you no longer want to eat it. Seeing something like that definitely is a lot more heartwarming and kind of gives a lot more backstory to it.
And you may not have intentionally done it, but after this broadcast is over, I'm going to go and find out how aerosol cheese is made. You piqued my curiosity.
I would not recommend that.
I've never even heard of aerosol cheese, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's a Cheese Whiz, cheese in a can.
Oh, okay. Well, my interest has just been quelled. Thank you.
Huh.
Here's the battle for third place still going on. I mean, if this was a battle for the race lead, it'd be really good because you got about 7 drivers that are mixing it up back and forth, starting left and right. But it's for third place going on about 2.5 seconds behind the 1 and the 6. So we know that Forsyth, he's trying the strategy of being able to make it on one more pit stop. Everybody else, especially the 6 and the 1, I don't know if they can make it on one more pit stop based on the fact they're not really getting as much benefit of draft as some of these other guys. So that strategy. Whoa, car on the wall.
That
was that Teed, I believe?
Actually, it looks like it was Wagner. Oh, yeah, it was Teed. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Teed got it pretty good, and you saw Nunez, and I think that was Wagner, have to dart down close to the.
I don't think he was ready for the aero push that was going to come off the 18. He's been running alone for so long,
And
but
he's on
definitely
pit road.
that hurt a lot of guys.
Oh man, Charles Teed was having a great run there. I believe he was running in the 6th position before that contact with the outside save for Barry, and now an unscheduled pit stop for him. And Teed was coming into this race off of a decent outing last week. Know that he got involved in an incident, but was able to use a faster pair and brought it home. I believe it was in the 10th position. Looking to build off that here tonight, but not the case here with less than 50 to go.
I said the big thing that really is Teed's issue, and has been a fundamental issue, at least at the beginning of this season and kind of around the end of last season, where he starts off strong and kind of has a good run, and then there's something that happens mid-race where, again, either a lapse in judgment or just unfortunate mistake, and it kind of affects him for the rest of the race where he can't bounce back. I really look at trying to clean up those mistakes, but if you ask me, I can't really point you in the right direction of how to fix it.
We are right now about halfway through this stint. Drivers will then have to strategize. For some of them, maybe their final stop of the evening. For others, they're going to probably still be about 3 to 4 laps short. Want to remind you all that Dark Horse Racing Series in partnership with simwrapmarket.com. And if you head on over to the website, you can get 10% off any order if you use the promo code DarkHorse10. That's simwrapmarket.com. Between David Cook and Rick Ravon right now, I know that this is working out for them in terms of pulling away from the rest of the field. But at some point, do they kind of figure, let's just ride in line here, one behind the other, because we're using up fuel with going out in front, creating the draft for the other race car?
I mean, the idea is, I don't foresee them stopping this. And the reason I don't foresee them stopping is because, again, even when they pit, they ended up coming out with a bigger gap than they had in the previous time. So at least they can kind of maximize their entry in the pit road, and they'll still have the same, if not better, advantage. Now, the real question becomes, when do they stop doing this? And when they stop doing this, when is it finally go time where they both compete for the win?
I'm looking right now, trying to crunch the numbers of who maybe and do the one-stop strategy from this point on. Craig Forsyth, we know, looks like one of those drivers. Another one could very well be a guy that came runner-up last week, wants to get that one position better. That's Alex Coates. He came to pit road 1 lap prior. And Craig Forsyth, another driver, Brian Carl, on the 30s back in the 11th position. And now he's running in the drive of Travis McMurray, and I believe that is Charles Teed, who has just returned back to the racetrack, up and them off the lead lap. So right now, the 10, 27, and the 30, who all might be right on the number, and just one more pit stop, they all been in draft, which is what they need.
I still think, even with Forsyth meeting those numbers, I still think the one stop's going to be hard for him. Especially with possibly little to no draft.
Well, if he comes down pit road on lap 29 of this stint, I think we basically have just been given the answer that he is going to try to make it from that point on and what he's got in the tank.
I think it's going to be one of those, I'll see it when I believe, or I'll believe it when I see it. It's going to be I think it's going to be a risky strat. But if you can't beat him on speed, try to beat him on strategy.
Well, we've had only one caution here tonight in the first 75 laps of this event, and that was a harmless spin by Joseph Morales during the middle of the first round of green flag pit stop. Since then, we have not seen a caution flag come out, but we have not been without incident. Eric Peterson had an early issue where apparently must have jumped the initial start. He had to come down pit road, lost 2 laps. He gained one of those laps back, but still remains -1 in the 14th position. Joe McAdory and Elmer Joseph, they were tagged by the speeding police during our round of green flag pit stops about 20 laps ago. And most recently, Charles Teed getting up into the wall, unscheduled stop for him. He is currently a lap down in the 15th position. So at this point in time, we've got 17 drivers of our original 18 that are still running, and 13 of them currently on the lead lap. And I think we're going to have some lap traffic here in a moment, Matt, because I think only about, there you see, only about maybe a half a straightaway ahead of David Cook and Rick Ravon. That is Jason Hand and Dylan McIntosh. And
this is where it's going to get in that really interesting period of, if it's really going to affect the front guys. And honestly, as long as both the 312 and the 13 are kind of predictable, I don't expect them to affect them. But again, the 312 and the 13 both have their own right to race the racetrack as they want. So easily they could try and hold up his front pack, and it can make life just a little bit difficult.
How about the 14 diving onto pit road only 22 laps into this stint?
He could be just deciding that, hey, this strategy isn't going to work, so I'd rather take another stop and try to just go as fast as possible, or see if I can shortcut or an undercut and just try and jump these guys.
Saw him take on tires as well, and maybe have the strategy of thinking that nobody is able to make it on one stop, and if he comes down a second time in the closing stages, he'll take on less fuel than other drivers would. Matt Wagner has actually come down pit lane here as well. I mean, we talked about a guy that knows how to get around Auto Club, knows all the tricks of the trade. Well, right now, might be doing something a little bit more
Oh,
unorthodox as he overshot his pit
80.
stall.
That's gonna hurt.
We talked about it, the asphalt to concrete transition from pit lane to the pit stall.
As a driver, Auto Club is one of the tracks that I hate coming to for pit road, just because just that little concrete patch, you're not expecting it. Where, usually some of the racetracks here, they'll use concrete down the entire pit road, so at least you have that in mind and you already have it prepped. But okay, I need to brake a little bit early, I need to stop a little bit early. But here it's just deceptive. The entire track's asphalt, the pit lane is asphalt, but as the moment that you get to your pit box, it is concrete, and man, that thing slides.
David Cook to pit road. We saw the previous lap. Rick Ravon, Dylan Moskowitz, Thaddeus McMurray on pit lane. Also the lap machine of Dylan McIntosh. That turns the race lead over to this battle between Alec Coates, Jeff Heisong, and Craig Forsyth. Now, for most of those drivers that we just saw on pit lane, they actually came down pit road on lap 22 or 23 of their stint. So that's certainly a lot earlier this go-round than it was the first go-round.
Oh, and Forsyth's all alone. I don't know if that's going to really work. He does have Rick Ravon in front of him. He can kind of take advantage of this, but again,
Al Coates, Heisong, Morales on pit road. And yep, for Craig Forsyth, if he's going to make it to that target lap of 29, he's got to make it another 5 circuits. So I think things must have just gotten spread out enough. It didn't look super spread out, but we know, we've been told that once things get spread out and not a lot of pack racing is going on, the fuel number is going to get smaller.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of predicting here, where I don't think Forsyth can keep up that same level of savings, that same level of being able to make it 29 laps. I'm not sold.
Well, he has stayed out, as has Brandon Carl. Saw Rick Ravon and David Cook bypass Craig Forsyth, which is important because if we were to get a free caution right now, we would only have 4 drivers on the lead lap, Ravon being the last of those. Everybody else currently is trapped a lap down due to the 27 and the 30 staying out. It's like Carl's coming in this time from second place.
Just trying to run the numbers here. I would say for the strategy to be viable, I need Forsyth to run about 2 to 3 more laps before I feel really confident about it.
Right. But even then, I think he would have to, again, like the same scenario back when he made his first green flag pit stop, he's going to have to come out with somebody to draft with. He's by his lonesome, and there's no way he's going to reach that target lap of 29. And look at how low he's running there on the racetrack, trying to take the shortest way possible around this 2-mile speedway.
Because right now, if he were to pit this lap, he would have 30 laps to go. He's ran 27 on this stint. I don't have confidence in that totally. So now coming to this lap, he has 29 to the good. So effectively, something to make it really confident in my mind is that he can make this next lap completely on his own. So he can make his life a little bit easier. He only have 28 laps left to go, and that's a lot more reasonable. It's a lot easier to take down than 29. Again, it doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but hey, just making it that extra lap. But I don't think he's going to be able to do it. I think he just called that coming down the pit road. I don't know.
This is right on the mark. This is his 29th circuit on this stint, and it would be 29 laps to go when he crosses the start-finish line, or if David Cook is able to make it around here and complete the 86th lap, then he would put it at 29 to go. So this is right on the mark. I mean, we know that nobody else is going to be able to make it on fuel. They're all going to have to come back down pit road somewhere in the vicinity of less than 10 to go. It almost kind of looks like maybe somewhere around 3 to 5 laps remaining. Oh, man, this is super, super close here for Craig Forsyth.
I mean, again, I'm not totally sold on the strategy, but I could see it working out. The only thing that's really going to work against Craig Forsyth here is because looking at everyone else, the longest guy on the stint right now is Luis Gonzalez Nunez, excluding Charles T because he's been out for a minute, but Nunez has been out for 9 laps. So if I look at this, we do 115 minus 87. He's still got 28 laps to go. We increase his range by about 9 laps. He's roughly 7 short. So if I walk it back, I mean, 7 short, assuming Forsyth fuel strategy or fuel mileage, which, results may vary. But looking at Rick Raven, he's 2 laps shorter. And why I don't mean he can make it to the end, what I do mean by that is that he has to stay on pit road a less amount of time. So I'm not sure if just avoiding that pit stop. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm throwing it back and forth.
Forsyth was able to merge back onto the racetrack with a group of race cars. That's Haisong, Wagner, and Moskowitz ahead of him. So right now Forsyth slots into 7th. This is 4th through 7th. You're seeing on your screen right now. And going back to that point about Luis Gonzalez Nunez, he was the first one on pit road starting that cycle green flag pit stops, and look where he is. He's now up to 3rd. He was 8th when those green flag pit stops began. So based off of the thought process that maybe nobody can make it to the conclusion of this race without coming to pit road again, this was a net gain for the 14, and he may be able to maintain this till the end of the race if he executes the final pit stop correctly.
Indeed, but what he really did was he's forced both Rick Ravon and David Cook to continue doing their strategy of swapping cars, because if he doesn't, that really kind of puts him at a disadvantage if Forsyth doesn't have to pit again. If they do have to pit again and Forsyth doesn't, I want to try to get as much gap as I can where I'm at the best possible chance where I can still use my drafting technique to get past him, or at least be within shot of him.
25 laps to go, and this is where it's going to come down to a question of when do you make that final pit stop? I mean, for most of these guys, as I said, they projected could make it to around lap 110, maybe the furthest they could go before they'd eventually have to come down and top off the fuel tank to reach the conclusion. So do you wait until that last possible moment, maybe go back to that strategy you were talking about? If tire wear isn't that bad, just put the fuel in the car, don't even bother changing the Firestones and go back out there? Or do you maybe come down pit road somewhere around 15 to go, maybe at 10 to go?
I mean, I'll fully admit, if I'm Craig Forsyth, I'm running the thing dry one way or another.
Oh, for sure.
I'd say right now my strategy is once you stayed out that long, you have made your strategy. You cannot come down and pit again. You've made your strategy, you got to live with it now. But if I was everyone else, I'd be trying to pit maybe as soon as possible, trying to get the ultimate undercut, get yourself just enough fuel in the IndyCar where you can kind of make it to the end, and then hope that guys take too much fuel or take not enough and have to pit again.
This is the final stop of the evening for Charles Teed. He obviously was hoping for a caution there those last few laps, because with everybody coming down pit road after he had the unscheduled trip to pit lane, he was back on the lead lap running in the 8th position. But now, having to come down pit road for a regularly scheduled stop, he will fall at least 1 lap down once again, and just there fell out of the free pass position with Jason Hand bypassing him for the 11th spot.
Again, Eric Peterson just kind of had a rough night altogether where he was one of the faster cars here. I think he could have easily walked away with it due to past success here at Auto Club and really with strong showings. Again, just one of those mistakes that you cannot make, and that's not really, I don't want to say it's a rookie mistake, but it's one of those mistakes where you don't sit right with.
Looks like we had another driver that is not going to reach the conclusion of this race. Elmer Joseph pulled his car into the infield about 13 laps ago, so he will be credited with 17th place here tonight as we have 10 drivers on the lead lap. Now, another driver that I'm looking at right now that maybe could make it the rest of the way on fuel, but I'm not certain just based on the fact that when he returned back to the track, he did not have anybody to draft with, and that is the 30 of Brandon Carl, who is right now about maybe 7 seconds ahead of the race leaders, could possibly get lapped before we see most of these drivers dive onto pit road for the final time. Somebody just left pit road there. I believe that was the 00 of Jason Hand. So that now moves Eric Peterson up into the free pass position.
And again, Eric Peterson jumping up and down saying, hey, I think there's a little bit of breeze in this corner. I think there's a little bit of oil on the track. I think someone's wrecking. I think we need to call caution. I just saw someone dive on the pit road in a bright cherry red car. Looks like that was the 60 of Morales.
Morales, and he's following Luis Gonzalez Nunez down pit lane. Nunez pitting from the 3rd position. Final stop of the evening. Be interesting to see if this is just a fuel-only stop for the 14.
I mean, realistically, I think a fuel-only stop would probably be the best strategy, but I'm seeing Joseph Morales' car got jacked up. I think he's putting tires on it. I think in his situation that might be the right call. Just put tires on it. Try to hope that the fresh rubber will give you any bit of an advantage. Just kind of claw back positions.
Talked about Brandon Carl and whether he could make it or not, and he also was on pit lane that time around, so he is going to lose a lap as he was just ahead of the race leaders before he dove onto pit lane, and looks like it might have been a fuel-only stop there for Nunez. 6.6 seconds spent in his pit stall.
Ooh. I'd say I think this is going to get really complicated very fast.
And you talked about when Nunez hit pit road the last time, it kind of forced the hands of David Cook and Rick Ravon. So did this pit stop force their hands, or have they already got a strategy in place and just going to stick to it? Does the 14 not affect it now?
I think at this point you're sticking to your guns. I don't think you've thought out your strategy front and back. I'm fairly certain you're confident and you're not going to change it. But again, it's just one of those things where I'm not solidly sure.
Dylan Moskowitz from 5th place on pit road. Jeff Highsong now coming to pit lane as well. Both drivers were running in the top 5 just moments ago. Last thing you want to do here, though, is if you're having a good run, throw it away with a mistake. I mean, we already saw Matt Wagner earlier on overshoot his stall. Up, same deal right there for Jeff Highsong. May not seem like much, but that little bit of overstep past your pit stall, the amount of time it takes to back it up.
I'm looking at Forsyth, though, and Forsyth is way off the next car in line. But I'm noticing he's taking a lot slower speed in corners. He's running about 212 in the corners, when Matt Wagner was entering about 220. So right now, I think he knows he's in trouble with not having any drafting help. So he's kind of just trying to hold it out the best he can.
I want to watch his line here through 3 and 4. And yeah, while most drivers are kind of running about maybe a groove and a half off that white line, he's almost got it pinned down to that white line, still taking the shortest possible way around this racetrack.
And I think this may be the Achilles heel in Craig Forsyth's strategy, where he heavily relies on draft level cars. So when he does not have a number of drafted cars, he can't carry full speed. He can't keep fighting the same way he does. Right now, he's 10 seconds off the leader.
Remember that when he came off pit road the last time, or correction, before he came to pit road the last time, he had Rick Ravon and David Cook right in front of him, had them on the tail end of the lead lap. So a bit of a scenario here, going at over 200 miles per hour, where would be the first or the earliest you could run out of fuel and be able to coast back to the start-finish line before Cook and Ravon complete a lap and get past you?
If you ask me, never. Realistically, probably your best point is in the entry of 3. But I'm going to tell you, Gonzalez Nunez, man, my butchering. It definitely is shining light here at the moment. He's going to try and hopefully kind of ride with him, kind of get some of the same draft, and hopefully cross his fingers and try to ride around to the finish. But I think that deficit's definitely going to come back to bite him, where he's 11 seconds off the leader, and they're going to continue to gain time.
Matt Wagner down pit road. There you see him just now creeping out from behind the scoring pylon here on the front straightaway. That pylon not doing us any favors, showing the drivers coming down pit lane there. Ravon and Cook. Now I'm trying to kind of gauge with where 14 is at.
Here's my thought.
Is it possible for Nunez to cycle out to the race lead? Is there any scenario for that based off of what Cook and Ravon have been able to do, gapping everybody?
Nunez coming out to the race lead, that would be, I think it'd be impossible at this point. and unless there's another caution. But what I foresee is Ravon and Cook go on the pit road.
Ivan's in.
Easily, what I think is going to happen is Forsythe's going to pass them. He's going to probably get about a 5-6 second lead. It could be more because I'm seeing them pass him now. But he's getting probably, hopefully, I give him benefit of doubt. Give him 10 to 15 seconds. But he's having to ride around at like half speed. And he's having to be conservative. Well, at the same time, Ravon and Cook, which it doesn't actually look like Cook came in. No, Cook didn't come in.
He's coming in
Ooh.
this time.
That may hurt the strategy.
Also had 37 of Thaddeus McMurray in the previous lap. McIntosh is in, and I don't know what happened.
Ravon took tires.
But what? All of a sudden, I'm looking, and Alec Coates is 2 laps down in the 15th position. What the heck happened to last week's runner-up?
And just looking back here, I wonder. Which doesn't make much sense. I'm not exactly sure how he ended up 2 laps down.
I'm not certain either. We didn't have any incident to my
Doesn't-
knowledge.
It doesn't look like he pitted twice.
So it's not going to be a good points day for him. There's a lot of drivers. I mean, we talk about the beginning of seasons where if you're going to pick up positions, do it early on in the season when all the points are close together. On the flip side, if you're going to lose a ton of spots, don't have bad luck early on in the season because the points are all close together. I mean, I'm looking right now at our current running order. There's a lot of drivers that are going to be taking a pretty rapid descent in points. Alex Coates there with whatever happened to him was second in points. Eric Schaus not in the event here tonight. Eric Peterson off the lead lap. Corley not in the field here tonight. I mean, it looks like right now the only driver that's going to be leaving with decent points that was up there towards the top of the top 5 in the point standings is the guy we're looking at, Rick Ravon.
I'm going to tell you, I'm looking at this right here, and right now, this is the nightmare scenario for David Cook and Rick Ravon. They are so far off. They are over 20 seconds off of Craig Forsythe. Craig has draft. He has someone to work with and save fuel. He did run a few laps without anyone drafting, so that would be a little bit of an eye catcher in my mind of maybe he can't make it. Maybe he'll be a little bit short. But again, 24 seconds, and your nearest help is Rick Ravon, and he is 5 seconds off of you. And I don't think I'm going to drop 5 seconds for my teammate, especially when my next car in line is up to 30 seconds away. I think, barring any huge circumstances, this is Forsythe's to lose.
We're going to have 2 things to look at here in a moment in the same camera shot. We're looking at Forsythe to see if he can make it what will now be the final 10 miles of this race, but also potential battle brewing for the 4th position in the closing stages. Luis Gonzalez Nunez is running P5 just ahead of Forsythe, and just up ahead there you can see the 3 of Matt Wagner in 4th position. So Forsythe might help Nunez get up there and snag another spot higher in the top 5.
I just took a look back because I was kind of curious. I'm looking at Craig Forsythe's stats here, just past previous seasons. Season 5 had to be easily his most dominant season, kind of just getting a bunch of wins, kind of just racking it up. But what really caught me was every win that he had last season, he led a good majority of the laps, or at least led a good portion of it where it was double digits, it was notable. Where I'm looking at his Indy season win, as I'm noticing Craig Forsythe dropped to the bottom of the track a little bit.
Yeah, I was watching the telemetry. Speed might be decreasing.
I think he's going ultra conservative now because he knows that he has to save. But the good news is David Cook is exiting 2 right now. He is on the front straightaway. So I think he is just max save mode. He is trying to make it.
We saw Song going around him. Dylan Moskowitz is catching up to him quickly. Yeah, he is.
I keep my telemetry up
to that
because
white line.
if that RPM drops to 0, we'll know what happened.
Right, exactly.
I'm looking at it, and in all theory, he should be able to make it. But the problem is he did run a few laps at speed by himself. So I'm kind of wondering how that's affected gas mileage just a little bit. Gap is 18 seconds and closing.
On board here with Forsyth, who just hit the line for 2 laps to go. 4 miles to make it around, and well, you have to wonder what the fuel number looks like right now.
I mean, David Cook is just jumping up and down like, I'm going to go as fast as... Uh-oh. Oh, he's out. I think he's out.
Nope, he brought the telemetry back up again.
It does not sound good.
He's at 183 through the corner. He was down to about 170 on the back straightaway. White flag in the air, this time 12 seconds and closing rapidly back to David Cook.
He's got to go because he's in that point where if you're going to make it, you got to go.
See when he decides to put the hammer down to about 180 here through 1 and 2. As he coasts on the back straightaway, gaps less than 10 seconds, 8.5.
Cook is at 220.
You gotta punch it now, right? Because you'd be able to coast it the rest of the way, possibly.
It depends. Do you want that short spurt of speed, or do you want the consistent slow? Oh, he's out.
He's out. He's out. Where's David Cook? He's out of fuel. David Cook is still in
four.
Four.
Oh, it's gonna be a race.
Oh, Forsyth
Just
makes
barely.
it. Just made it. Wow.
That's cutting it close.
You're not kidding. My goodness, what was the interval? 1 point, well, a little over a second and a half. I'd say maybe at the most 7 car lengths.
So Forsyth for staying at the bottom of the track. Obviously trying to take the shortest way around the track, but I know most drivers would have pulled back up and used David Cook as a little bit of a ramp to push himself past the line. Definitely a monumental effort.
Wow, that is an amazing fuel strategy that Craig Forsyth was able to pull off. And I was thinking to myself, back when it looked like this might have been his strategy from the get-go, what was it that prompted him to try this unorthodox strategy? I wondered if it was possibly the ability of Cook and Ravon with what we saw them doing, the back and forth to pull away from the field, if he felt he had to do something different in that regard, or if it was just the fact that last week he lost out on so many points in the conversation for the win, but brought it home outside of the top 15. He felt that he had to do something outside the box to gain those points back.
I'm hoping that he kind of listens to us every week where, again, if you're not going to beat him on speed, you have to beat him on strategy. And I think he realized very early in the race that, again, with the speed that he was going, with the qualifying position that he had, and the kind of the setup that he was running with, I don't think he thought he could have won it off of speed. So, hey, with this being a majority green flag race, it kind of played right into his hands.
Well, Dylan McIntosh, good Samaritan to help push Craig Forsyth back to pit road and victory lane. There's going to be no burnouts here tonight, folks, unless they bring a gas can out there to the racetrack.
King's got to finish his last race, huh?
He does. It seems kind of fitting. It's got that Richard Petty blue on it.
I mean, here's the thing where there is great triumph. There's also is great disappointment. Look at David Cook and Rick Ravon. Those are two guys who are easily dominating the race off of speed. And hey, that just kind of goes to show you that speed does not win this race. Speed is not everything. And
think about it too. David Cook, if he had been able to get Craig Forsyth at the line, that would have been his first career win here in the Dark Horse Racing Series.
And it hurts. Anyone will tell you that you'd rather lose a race by 20 seconds than lose a race by about a second. Because when you're that close, you look back at your entire race, you look back at everything that you've done and said, I mean, if only I'd done this, maybe if I went harder on the pit road, maybe if I didn't take as much gas, maybe if I took just no tires, maybe if I did this, I'd be closer. I would have had the win. And that is the biggest demotivational for a driver that you could have, where you really just start kicking yourself for no reason, where when you finish, 20 seconds behind, it's, I mean, no matter what I was going to do, there's no way I was going to catch back up to him. And that's kind of the huge kicker that I'm kind of dreading for Cook right now, where he's beating himself up.
Craig Forsyth got pushed to the front straightaway, parked it right there in the center of the AAA logo. And that's probably where the celebration is going to have to take place. Crew might actually have to push him to that victory lane there towards the pit wall on the front straightaway. Let's take a look at the finishing results. And Well, we had a lot of stories coming out of Pocono, but we got a lot of stories based off of what happened here tonight as well at Auto Club. A lot of these drivers that we see on the top of our leaderboard, a lot of them made their way up here through either strategy or through drivers that were up at the front having mistakes. I mean, you got Morales, who brought out our only caution here tonight. He's going to snag a spot inside the top 10 in 8th. Thaddeus McMurray was dealing with connection problems all night long. He brings it home in the 10th place. And there's a couple of names that are really jumping out to me here, Matt. Forsyth, Cook, and Highsong. These are 3 drivers that came into this race outside the top 5 in the point stands, and we documented a lot of our front runners having issues here tonight. These are going to be some drivers that are going to make some gains, some leaps and bounds in the point standings heading to Kentucky next week.
Well, I mean, I'll go ahead and I'll just shine a light on Dylan Moskowitz. Drove all the way up from 17th position, drove up 11 spots. Definitely a good momentum changer from last week. We're in P19 DNF.
Teed, 7th place after getting the wall, had to make an unscheduled pit stop, was off sequence from everybody. Since everyone couldn't make it the rest of the way without coming to pit road, he still managed to finish on the lead lap inside of the top 10.
Not bad, not bad. I'm also looking at a few of the just kind of sadder stories where you're looking at Eric Peterson and P13, 11 spots down, qualified outside pole, jumped the start. And by jumping the start, got almost 2 laps down, clawed one back, but just couldn't claw the last one. Alex Coates, I'm not really exactly sure what happened there, but he went 2 laps down. Looking at Joe McAdory, McAdory got caught on road or his pit road with a speeding penalty. Definitely kind of big downer for your day.
Yeah, certainly a lot of drivers that are going to be looking to bounce back next week when we get to the Bluegrass State of Kentucky. But some other drivers riding some really good momentum into that mile-and-a-half racetrack with the good performances here tonight. And we're going to be talking with a few of them here in just a few moments. Matter of fact, I believe we've got a few of them standing by. So why don't we kick things off and see if we can dial up tonight's 3rd place finisher, Rick Ravon. Hey, Rick, it's Matt and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got a copy?
Oops. Wrong.
Yeah, I think you talked in the actual chat.
Wait, let me do that again. Let me start that again.
All right, take 2. Rick, it's Matt and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Hey, what a surprise. How you guys doing?
Man, we're doing good. Saw a heck of a race here tonight. A nail biter in terms of strategy as well. We saw you and the 6 really had the strategy of swapping back and forth, gapping the rest of the field. We saw you guys get separated there at the end, though. Was that maybe a difference maker into you guys not being able to reel in Forsyth in the closing stages after you ran out of fuel?
I'm sorry. Actually, our race winner was in the middle of talking. I didn't hear the question.
Basically, just after that pit stop, we saw that you and David Cook, you guys were able to stay in close proximity, swap the lead back and forth, and allowed you to gap the rest of the field. But when you guys came off pit road with your final pit stop, you guys were pretty separated. And was that a difference maker into you guys not being able to close in quickly enough on Forsyth after you ran out of fuel on the final lap?
Oh, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. If we were together, we would have been swapping and we would have been gaining. We would have, I think the margin was like 1.5 or 1.6 seconds. That was Craig's margin of victory. And if we were swapping, we would have gained a lot more than that. So I don't know if it got on, if you guys saw, but I botched that last pit stop. Alec Coates was coming out of the pits and I was coming in, and I was afraid we were gonna hit. And so it threw my timing off a little bit, and I slid into my box sideways, and they didn't start changing tires or anything or refueling. So I had to go forward and back it up, and so that cost me a good 3 or 4 seconds right there. And if I didn't make that mistake, I think that Cook and I would have come out together, and we probably would have finished 1-2. That would have been great. But I got to hand it to Craig, man. When Dave Cook and I were swapping back and forth, we had a decent lead. We had made our pit stop, and Forsyth was right behind us, and I saw that red number 1 on the telemetry, and I said, "Oh, Forsyth is leading." And another lap went by. Oh, he's still there. Another lap went by. He's still there. Another lap went by. I said, "Oh, you got to be kidding!" And another lap went by. And I'm like, "Holy cow, he might make it, dude! I think Forsyth is in the catbird seat." And he's like, "Yeah, I think so." I'm like, "Well, we're committed. We can't save fuel now. The strategy is what it is. So just hope for the best. And sure enough, after the pit stop, I said, yeah, I think he's going to make it. And then, Dave saw that he was slowing down. He says, oh, I don't know. It's going to be close. It's going to be close. And just wasn't close enough. That was awesome, man. I love when guys play strategies like that. I don't know how he made it that far. That was a miracle, but that's Craig Forsyth for you. The guy's a master at fuel saving, and he proved it tonight. That was great.
So I'm going to ask you the same question I'm going to ask Cook, which is if you decided to take less fuel, if you decided to take less or didn't want to take tires, could that have changed the outcome at all?
Well, I did take tires. I was considering not taking tires, but I took tires at the end because I didn't want. I knew that I had to get 6 gallons, so I figured, well, another couple seconds, and I'm going to have fresh tires. So I decided to take tires on that last stop. I'm not sure if that would have changed. I know what would have changed the outcome was if I didn't screw up that last pit stop. Things would have been a little bit different. But other than that, I don't think so.
Well, Rick, next week we head to Kentucky, a track that you've had some pretty good success at last 2 starts, bringing it home in the runner-up position both of those races. I mean, great start to the season for you, the win last week and the 3rd place run here tonight. So got to have a high confidence level going into a track that you've got good numbers at.
Well, I got good numbers, but I haven't hit that number 1 spot yet. I think if I remember, it was Kentucky where Forsyth and I battled. I think Teeb was up there too, if I remember. And Forsyth got me going into turn 1 on the white flag lap, and I couldn't get him back before the start-finish line. So Forsyth is probably the one to beat as we head to next week. But, so far so good this season, a couple of podium finishes, and just hope that we can continue on this trend.
Well, Rick Ravon, P3 here tonight under the lights at Auto Club. A strong performance here tonight by the driver of the number 1. And Rick will now give you the opportunity to thank some sponsors and do some shout-outs.
All right. Thank you, Lord Jesus. Thank you for dying on the cross for me. I love you with all my heart, soul, mind, and breath. Thanks to my wife. Thanks to my children, Zoe, Mila, all of you guys for supporting me. I love you guys so much. Thanks to you guys at FRN, Matt and Seth. Thanks to the guys that put together this great racing series here at the DW12s, Dark Horse. Congratulations again to Craig Forsyth. I know he was really disappointed last week. It was a shame what happened, but it's good to see him come back and get the win. So hopefully he feels a little better now. Thanks to everybody out there watching. Thanks to all the drivers. I mean, we only had 1 yellow flag tonight. That's just fantastic. And just looking forward to next week and racing the rest of the season. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, guys.
That's Rick Ravon. He's your 3rd place finisher here tonight at Auto Club. Once again, congrats on the great run and best of luck next week at Kentucky.
Thank you so much. God bless you. Thank you.
And we're going to talk to his teammate David Cook in just a minute, but a little housekeeping. We had the question marks there, Matt, during the course of this race. You hit it right on the head as far as hitting the pit limiter for Joseph Morales, that spin with him and Thaddeus McMurray that brought out our only caution of the evening. And it looks like maybe something similar there with Alec Coates that caused him to finish multiple laps down. We were kind of wondering about that.
That definitely that sucks for Joseph Morales. Went to go hit his mic button to announce he was pitting and accidentally clicked his pit limiter. And again, that's if you're prepared for it, that's something you could easily click back off and just kind of keep going on your way. But I think it just kind of shocked him so much when you click it expecting to talk and you're halfway through talking. It's like, why am I losing power?
Luckily, he was able to continue on and brought it home inside of the top 10. Let's see if we can now get tonight's runner-up finisher, David Cook. Hey, David, it's Matt and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Hey, guys. How's it going? Yeah.
Oh, man, I'll tell you what. So close to picking up first win of your Dark Horse Racing Series career here tonight. It was looking like everything was going correctly. Almost was able to get Craig Forsyth there at the start-finish line with him coasting out of fuel. Matt was talking about this, the races where you lose it by 20, 25 seconds are races you don't normally go back and look at, but races that are this close you do. If there was anything you could have done differently there on maybe that final pit stop or something like that, what would it have been?
Yeah, exactly. Well, coming out of the pits, I almost spun it out. I got it sideways pretty good, and then I kind of figured that was it because it was literally down to just tenths of a second, and I'm watching the telemetry and I'm seeing him and it was going to be really close. And then I made that little mistake, and that was it.
So
Well, we
let
saw-
me add. Oh,
Sorry.
rock paper scissors, or
No. You go.
But let me ask you, David. I mean, is there anything that you could have done on that last pit cycle that could have changed the odds? Could you have pitted a lap earlier? Could you taken a little bit less fuel? I mean, anything that could have been the game changer here?
Yeah, I think that there's a different few variables that could have happened. I could have taken less of fuel. I could have pitted like a few laps earlier, but it was what it was, and we went for it. Rick and I were doing the trading down the straightaways, and we had built up quite a lead, and I had thought that possibly, we had gotten out far enough, but just wasn't enough, man. And gosh, what a race though! I had so much fun.
So you had an 8th in the season opener at Pocono, led over 20 laps there, out in front for a bunch of laps here tonight in second place. Obviously going to climb up there in the point stands. We're going to get to see you for the first time take to the track of Kentucky for the first time in your Dark Horse Racing Series career next week. Obviously a lot of momentum on the side of the 6 cars, so what things have you been able to learn here in our first speedway races that maybe you can apply to Kentucky, or with it being a mile and a half, is it basically just an entirely different track, an entirely different mindset?
I think it's just learning how to drive behind people and learning the aero push and whatnot, depending on each track. And I'd gotten it down pretty good here at California, but Kentucky I haven't really raced much at, so that's going to be a whole new experience for me. But we'll put plenty of practice in and see what we can do.
Well, David, a great run for you here tonight. Almost picking up that first victory of your career. We kind of get the feeling it's going to happen at some point this season with the consistency we've seen out of you, not only here at the beginning of this year, but also last season as well. Congratulations on the great run, and now we'll give you the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout outs.
Awesome, thanks so much, guys. Yeah, hey, Craig Forsyth, awesome job, man. That was ridiculous. My Norton Spirit car, Rick Raven, my teammate. Wow, awesome racing, buddy. Yeah, just a great race overall. These guys are so fast, and it's just a blast to race with them. So thanks everybody. Thanks to you guys up in the broadcast booth. We appreciate you guys doing this every week. So thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you guys.
That's David Cook, your runner-up finisher here tonight at Auto Club. Congratulations once again on the great performance, and best of luck next week in the Bluegrass State.
Thanks, guys.
All right, let's see if we can go down to Victory Lane, where I believe they've now pushed his race car. See if we could dial up Craig Forsyth. Hey, Craig, it's Matt and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
You betcha, guys. How you doing tonight?
Oh man, I can remember back when we ended up calling the Indy 500 in season 2, and you picked up the victory in an amazing 3-wide move. You got a flair for the dramatic, and here tonight, no exception. Saw you run out of fuel there through the middle of 3 and 4, able to coast it to the start-finish line, and by just a little more than a second and a half, nab your first victory here of the season. But we're up here trying to crunch the numbers, trying to figure out where you were at, where you might run out of fuel, if you could make it the rest of the distance. Just how were you inside the cockpit? I mean, was there nervousness? Was there calm and knowing you could make it? I mean, what was the range of emotions that were taking place in the 27 car?
I knew going into the race, 29, 29, 29, 28 was going to be a fuel save strat. I didn't really think it was possible because any amount of fighting was going to mean you couldn't make the 29. And in that first stint, I got, we started, there started to go being I tried to just sort of sit back and fuel save, and I was making the number, but then the fighting started amongst the third through sixth guys. And immediately I dropped down to, I think it was 28 laps was all I was going to make. And I was like, well, I'm not going to over fuel save from then on. But then that caution came out during the pit cycle, which put me back onto the potential for the fuel save. And at that point, I didn't see why not, because I was already, I think it was 7th or 8th, I might have come up to 4th, but I knew that I was going to do the fuel save. So from then on, it was making the fuel save the whole thing. The big trouble with the fuel save was you had to be 0.1 to 0.4 seconds behind the car. The second they got 0.5 or more ahead, your fuel usage went right through the roof. So on that last run, I initially went into it coming out able to make it, but then every single time I started to lose the draft of a car or one of the cars in front of me pitted, that started spiking my numbers back up. And that was when I think it was probably 15 laps to go. I knew there was no way I was going to make it anymore. I was probably going to be a half a lap to a lap short. At which point I'm committed to it, so I was hoping for a caution. And then I think it was 3 laps to go with no caution coming out. It was like, well, I've got a 22-second lead. How slow can I go and make it across the line? And it turned out exactly that slow. That was exactly how slow I could go and still cross the line ahead. That was crazy.
As much as we enjoyed seeing the nail biter up here, I have to ask: is there anything else that you could have done to buy yourself just a little bit more time?
Well, yeah, I could have accidentally hip checked someone into the wall and got myself a caution. No, I was so stuck to that strategy, and that strategy was so dependent on having draft. And as I said, every single time I lost the car in front of me, that strategy just became completely unusable. And I thought I was going to have to pit like 4 laps before the end of the race. It was getting so bad. So it lucked out that I realized I had almost a full lap buffer. And if I dialed it right down, I could probably make 3 more laps out of the 1.5 laps of fuel I had. And it turned out I could almost sort of barely do that.
Craig, we know you were in the conversation for the victory last week in the season opener at Pocono. It sounds like you had this pit strategy, this fuel strategy already planned out before the green flag even dropped. But I mean, how even more so was it important that this strategy worked out for you to get you to victory lane to gain back the point you lost last week at Pocono?
It was unfortunate last week, and I was bitter about it for a couple days, admittedly, because it's always on when you finish 16th on the final lap after being up at the front the entire race. It leaves a dagger, that's for sure. But I didn't think I had the pace to keep up with David and Rick. They were really fast at this track, and based on my qualifying, I knew I was going to have a hard time even getting up. Usually I'll like to sit in the front group, in the the middle or the back of the front group, and just be happy there for most of the race until it's showtime. But the second we lost the draft, I knew that we weren't getting it back was unlikely unless the caution happened. So I mean, every race going in, I always have the fuel strategies for whatever the race is, depending so that way I'm ready for whatever the situation is. So in this case, I knew that the fuel save was what I was going to try the second I lost draft.
Well, Craig, a tremendous job by you here tonight. Right on the number to be able to get that number 27 to the start-finish line and pick up the victory here tonight at Auto Club. Congratulations on the job well done. We're looking forward to see you carry this momentum into Kentucky next week. But before we let you go, we're now going to hand the microphone over to you to do some Victory Lane thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Thanks, guys. I mean, I got to thank Jim over at 4D Racewear. Great sponsor for the team. Good sponsor for the various series that we drive. I mean, all the sponsors for the Dark Horse League. It's whether it's Troy Lee or it's you guys over at FRN. Both of you, Matt and Seth. It's like it's nice to have a good series with good guys that has hard racing every week, and we race hard every week. You see that in the broadcast, and hopefully the fans out there see that and enjoy that too. And it's nice to be back and have the new season underway.
Well, Craig Forsyth, your victor here tonight under the lights at the Auto Club Speedway. Once again, congratulations. Go enjoy this victory, and best of luck next week when we head to Kentucky Speedway.
Thanks, guys. Stay safe.
So as the celebration continues for Craig Forsyth, Matt, I'll tell you what, 2 races here to begin out the season, and 2 races where we've had storylines before, in the middle of, and immediately after the race. I mean, next week we head to the 1.5-mile track, so we're getting progressively smaller. It was 2.5 miles at Pocono, 2 miles here tonight at Auto Club. Now we go at the 1.5-mile track at Kentucky next week. I kind of get the feeling that next week we're going to have a lot more cars in much closer proximity. So what can we expect to see?
Really looking forward to next week. I'd be most concerned at, as we saw we didn't see last season, but as we saw last season on smaller tracks, We're going to see a lot tighter turns. I'd be seeing a lot more of Pocono, where it has more banking than Pocono, but it definitely is a little bit less room to operate, as we saw tonight at Auto Club, where it just sometimes wasn't enough room, even with 6 lanes. I would not be surprised to see caution count maybe increase off of next week.
And we heard that Craig Forsyth pegged as possibly the one to beat. He'll be heading into that Kentucky race as the defending race winner and the only driver that we know of that'll be on the grid that is a previous winner of that event. So it'll be a lot of fun to see if maybe he's able to double down, or will we see a different face in victory lane at the conclusion of that one. We hope that you guys will join us for that, as we'll be bringing you coverage of that Kentucky race next Sunday night. The green flag will be scheduled to fly at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But Matt, it's been a great one here tonight at Auto Club. We knew that the action was going to be fast and furious. Maybe didn't exactly plan that we were going to have that close of a nail-biter finish on fuel, but these races, they never seem to disappoint, and that's why you got to stick around for every single lap, because you don't know what kind of a finish you're going to get.
It's always a pleasure.
Once again, thanks to everybody that tuned in tonight. We'll see you guys next Sunday night for the continuation of the 6th season of the Dark Horse Racing Series presented by Troy Lee Designs. For Matthew Rodriguez, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening, folks, and we'll see you guys next week as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flat Out Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flat Out Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flat Out Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flat Out Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.